2, 3, live. Uh, Good night, Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad. This is the Belizeans Affair show number 73, Friday, 1st of December of 2023. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm one of your hosts for tonight and will be the chairman. And then we also have Mr. Rudy Wade, another one of our hosts on a panelist and host on this program. Tonight being Friday, as usual, we deal with legal matters and constitutional affairs. Uh, we're hoping to bring you a show that may contribute positively to the enhancement and awareness of what's going on in our country and to help us get a little stronger in our mind in terms of how to deal with the affairs of our country. Uh, we might have a couple other guests later on in the program. We'll just add them on as they show up. Uh, we'll go now to Mr. Wade. Every night, every time we broadcast our program, we usually ask for a little counseling words from reading from the Bible as well as a short prayer. Mr. Wade, please take it over.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you for that warm welcome, and it's always a pleasure to be in your company. And like you rightfully says, hope that whatever we depart on this show, it's a beneficiary to someone listening, right? So, and like you says, we might expect we expect other guests, and we welcome them. And again, thanks to our viewers and listeners, both at home and abroad, and our loyal supporters. And again, like I say, we bring to the nation truth, and we are about people and nation. Like you rightfully says, Leonard, I will continue on Proverbs chapter 31, 1 to 10.
Okay.
Says, the word of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drinks, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and prevent the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Open your mouth for the mute, for the right of all those uh, who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy.
Amen.
An excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. That's
Amen.
my reading Proverbs. Uh, Leonard, I will you know continue with the prayer, Leonard.
Okay, sir.
Um, you know, Sal, we always do our prayer, to show that we are a God-fearing team. Lord God Almighty, we pray for your mercy to give us courage, strength, wisdom, understanding, the will to speak truth, to love people and nation. We pray for closure for all who awaits for equal justice for all, for a godly nation, and for our leaders to turn from their wicked ways. We pray that our nation and people continues to be under your protection.
Amen.
We pray for healing for the sick, for those who are in need, for our elders and for our poor and less fortunate, and for our mothers and infants, and for all those who have been wrongfully accused. We pray for our loved ones who had left us. We pray for the killing to stop and for the war to stop and the
Mhm.
killing of innocent civilians. We pray for our elected leaders to stop lying to the people and educate them with truth and
Amen.
compassion and show that we are a godly nation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Uh, we have our program, like I said, set for tonight. And I want to start off by reading, by doing a short reading here of an article that I'd written oh, man, back in June of this year. It goes like this. The following comments were made by Leonard Brackett on a Facebook post thread about Belize PM Resenio's denying Cabinet's effort on definitive agreement, whilst double talking and lying to bamboozle the Belizean people at home and abroad. I titled the article Treachery in Belizean's High Places, and I went on to say, PM Briceño, you got caught trying to defend the indefensible and to perfect the crime against Belize. That is, to try and get the Portugal Agreement resurrected, validated, or breathe life into it, when in fact it should have been a dead carcass on arrival to your desk, rather than you having to have declared it after the fact, after it was caught and the pressure was brought on you. You declared it as being dead. You tore up a copy of it in the house, pretending that it was indeed dead, and you'd have nothing else to do with that dastardly agreement. Please implement UNCAC or CC. I then went on to say, PM Briceño pretends that he doesn't have enough talent, limited at that, to recognize the treacherousness and the illegality of that subordinating anti-Belizean definitive agreement. This week, our Prime Minister had the occasion to speak. Well, before that, let me continue with that since I was already on that thought. This week, we had the Prime Minister having an occasion to speak on the issue of the Senate inquiry. Of course, we all remember that after he took that matter to cabinet without having told or tell his cabinet that he was intending to suborn them and to bamboozle them to get their acquiescence and assistance for him to get that matter out of cabinet, after presenting in cabinet enabling legislation to go along with that crazy agreement, so that the House could have then, with their supermajority, And the House members, them who were not members of cabinet, who would not have known as much as the cabinet members would have known, who didn't knew all of what was going on behind the scene, that super majority of backbenchers would have just gone ahead with whatever came out of cabinet and supported the prime minister's attempt to put the whole country over a barrel, despite him having been told on many occasions by our previous Attorney General, as well as Mr. Jerosowicz, who was a preeminent lawyer and who is actually dealing with our Belizean affairs for us at the ICJ. He was solicited by the Prime Minister's office to help them lend legitimacy, legal cover for what the Prime Minister was trying to get to pass through cabinet, which is enabling law. And he failed to tell the members of cabinet that he had gotten that advice and had put that advice aside because it didn't square with what he was trying to get done or wanted to do, and that he went ahead and got a second advice from someone else who was a bit more compliant because that person was provided with the previous advice from the previous lawyer, with instructions that they wanted an opposite conclusion or advice that would support an opposite effort. So, for all intents and purposes, the Prime Minister, in his own words, said Mr. Jerosowicz did not understood his assignment that he gave him, which is why he had to go back and get somebody else. And the other person apparently understood his assignment. He not only understood the assignment, he understood what was being asked of him. And it was that, on the basis of that information that he got from the second lawyer, that he was trying to con the members of his cabinet into going along with him to try and breathe life into the dead horse. At that time, the horse was already stinking, not having dead, just being dead. But it was dead for so long that it was actually stinking to high hell. But still, he was willing to try and give it mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to try and resurrect this dead horse. He took the matter after the members of cabinet refused to go along with him, after they found out the little that they found out then, and didn't know the rest of the story until afterwards. But the little that they knew then caused them to rebel against him, and he could not get that matter approved through cabinet. He subsequently went to the House under false pretext to tell the people in the House and the nation not that he got caught and that he got pressured into not subordinating our country and the country's governance, but that he, as the Prime Minister, was the person who decided not to make it go forward. And for all intents and purposes, the stuff was dead. He tore up a copy of it in the House for dramatic effects, while all the time he was persisting behind the scene to have his office take another shot at getting this matter approved. And he was barefacedly enough to come and tell the public that his government was in negotiation with these people from Portugal and the cruise ship people then to try and give them another opportunity to see what they could salvage out of the existing agreement, under the guise that it would be a new agreement with him subordinating the powers of our government as Prime Minister for something at which he then had some interest in. He should not have done that because it was a private endeavor between private entities. He was not a signatory to the MOU, or the Memorandum of Understanding, that Portugal had with the cruise ship people then. He, as a Prime Minister, should not have had a share in any of those companies. It is constitutionally and unethically and illegal for him to sit as prime minister and try to subordinate the powers of governance of the country for any private venture, especially if he has interest in it. That is not what our country's governance powers is supposed to be about. Yet, he took a few trips abroad, not telling the nation where he was going and what he was going to go do. And on one occasion, he came back and he refused to even have an interview with the reporters when they cornered him. It was his Minister of State in his ministry, Mr. Koyi, that actually had to face the media and lied to the media. Mr. Koyi could not tell the media that they had just come from having negotiations with the cruise line people them. Where the hell does our Prime Minister come off with the idea that he's supposed to take all governance powers in his back pocket and go use it to negotiate with cruise line people on behalf of Puerto Rico, when we don't have a share in any of those organizations, which are private entities? Puerto Rico should have been negotiating its own deal as they did before with the cruise line. Not our Prime Minister and our government. We don't have a penny in that dollar. Or at least that's the way it's supposed to be. But based on the present track record and the evidence of the past, it appears that there are people in our government that have more than a penny interest in the successful conclusion and implementation of Puerto Rico. Otherwise, they would not suborn our cabinet, they would not suborn our House of Representatives or Senate and our people. Because when the lawsuit then start, then the Prime Minister name and be on the top of the lawsuit. There are ministers in the government of Belize who will be answerable. In the first instance, the Attorney General will be the one that the lawsuit will be going towards on behalf of the government and on behalf of the people. And it is we, the people, that will have to pay for those lawsuits. Legal expense and all other expense, including settlements. Not Mr. Briceño. None of you here oil company when I get sell, you come up with the revenue to pay Mr. Ashraf or to pay Mr. Feinstein or to pay Puerto Rico or to pay the Royal Caribbean or any of the other people that are involved in these mega projects. And when he will go in cabinet and make rules to say that only companies who can spend $250 to $300 million in their cruise operations will qualify, and his office will allow or give them the opportunity to get their cruise port moving forward. What he was doing was using the powers of governance to favor one entity, a dead-raised entity, and to favor that entity above the other two entities that have more experience and knowledge. And in one instance, in the case of the Feinstein Group, their facility is almost 70% completed, while Puerto Rico have no agreement with the government yet, but it's forcing its way to try and get some work done on the ground, so that if and when we as a government tell them we can't deal with them or we don't want to deal with them anymore, they go turn around and try to sue us. Because on the last report a few months ago, they said that they had spent over 13 million US. Doing what? Paying subordination fees, I guess. But Mr. Prime Minister, Mr. John Briceño, previously when these matters came up, sir, I took the liberty and they displayed an audacity to request that you cease and desist participating in the political undertakings, because it is you are the present prime minister, and you cannot be found subordinating the powers of our government to the interests of a political organization, and to leave us exposed to mega lawsuits, multiple lawsuits at that. That is not what we hired you to do. That's not what you told us you wanted to do when you got our governance power given to you. Otherwise, you may not have gotten it. But because we dare to trust you and your colleagues, you're now being dismissive of us and disdainful and malicious towards us. You go in at the house to go make laugh, you try to silence me, just because we complain to you about your wrongdoings. A while back, we thought you had some decency, so I would then propose to you, sir, demit office with whatever legal, constitutional, decency, ethics, morals, or whatever you have left. But I guess such a petty request was still too much for you to digest and to react to in the interest of your own party. Because when you have such a major majority, your demitting office would not have caused your government or your party to lose governance. But it would have saved their affairs rather than you forcing them now, rubbing their affairs into it. And now you're talking craziness to say that the Senate investigation, which you have been holding back and slowing down, which needs to move forward, should not move forward to investigate your government. If they want to investigate the previous government or anything that happened before under Mr. Contreras, they are welcome. That is not a decision for you to make, sir. You're not part of the Senate. The Senate, within its own prerogative and purview, is authorized with that power. Not you as the Prime Minister, who was a member of Congress. And then you have your unelected Foreign Minister and senior government business in the Senate trying to intimidate the other senators, stipulating to them that they should not investigate certain things and they should just ask certain questions and not certain other questions. Who the hell is he? He wasn't even elected. But the man dared to haul on in the pants and come to the Senate because you appointed on there. They come and bully Reagan around and strong the process and try to tell the rest of the members of the Senate what will be allowed and what will not be allowed. The bad part is that the good gentleman is also one of the top preeminent lawyers in the country. He should know his constitution. He knows legal ethics and morals and the legal frameworks. Where is their ethics and morals and good faith towards our country? The Senate is supposed to be investigating the Prime Minister and others for the part that they play in trying to subordinate the government of the country and our people on this political issue. But because he went and threw up a copy of it in the House, he wants to give the impression that that was the end of it and nobody should bother him or ask him any further questions. When in fact it was his office that provided the enabling legislation for Cabinet to take the House, to have the House try and vote for nothing to make it legal. Something that Mr. Jereshowitz in his legal recommendation pointed out to the government was highly illegal and inappropriate for the government to even touch or deal with. And that if he wanted to actually do something, he should provide a new avenue for the process to start all over, not for them to plagiarize. the existing document and to just take out a small little bits and pieces of the offending parts of the previous document and everything would be all right. I have another reading that I want to make quickly here, if you allow me, Mr. Wade. Just spare me a second, no, sir. I just want to grab something else, yeah?
Go ahead.
So October 7th, okay. No, I want to go to July 8th. Just let me find a quick information here. July 8th, okay. Let me quickly. July 8th. No, bear me a second, please. June. I'm looking for something here. Okay, I think June 22nd, July 2nd, June 27th. Okay, one more. July 7th, July 8th. Okay. Here we go. I got it. Thank you very much for bearing patience with me. Here's another article I wrote on July 8th of this year. The following comments were made between Mr. Leonard Brackett and Mr. Robert Turton as part of a Facebook thread about the Portugal Agreement. I titled the discussion Illegal Portugal Agreement Facilitation. Mr. Robert Turton had made a comment in one of the postings that we had where we were having this discussion. And Mr. Turton said, Gerasaric's legal opinion was submitted to GOB in April, stating that the definitive agreement is illegal. Mendes' opinion was submitted in May. So why did they reject Gerasaric's opinion while accepting Mendes' opinion a month after? I would dare to say that if Mr. Gerasaric submitted his opinion in April, he must have been given a contract to do his job at least a few weeks before, a couple of weeks at the minimum before. So it's quite likely we're talking about early April or somewhere in March. See how long the Prime Minister was on his path to deception? From March until he submitted the matter to Cabinet, that was March, April, May, June, July, right? All those days, all those weeks, all those months, the man was stewing in his bed, having nightmares about how this stuff is going to work out or how he will help to make it work out. He had members of his office under the Ministry of Finance and Prime Ministership put together documents for him, enabling legislation documents drafted so that he could bring to Cabinet to try and bamboozle Cabinet into accepting the crime that he was about to try and commit. And was it not for a few of the Cabinet members who really held their ground and saved us then, but subsequently were subordinated and could not save or did not save us after that, because they then came out and said, well, they're all in agreement. They had their caucus meetings and they're in agreement on Cabinet and the PUP party caucus, elected officials as well as the high-powered people decided that they was going to save the face of the Prime Minister who had egg on his face, having been caught with his hand in the cookie jar, and at the same time pretending that he didn't know what was going on. I went on to say, as a follow up to Mr. Robert Turton's comment, I made my own comment and I said, Mr. Robert Turton, because they're hell bent on, on perpetrating a fraud on Belize and Belizeans at home and abroad, as it appears they have vested interests and control the powers of Belize governance and will do whatever they can to facilitate the retirement scheme for the boys, as Lord Ashcroft said. Mr. Turton replied, Leonard Brackett, it is Cabinet's decision to determine the validity of a legal opinion. Well, of course, it was a question, so I should read it as a question. So let me reread it. Mr. Turton, in his reply, asked a question. He says, Leonard Brackett, is it Cabinet's decision to determine the validity of a legal opinion? Jurassic versus Mendes, for example. Jurassic says saying it's illegal and unenforceable, while Mendes says that it is valid. And this is why the AG Marine resigned. And this is why a black man, Sylvester, was elevated to the position to be a tribute, a rubber stamp. Mr. Robert Turton went on to say further, Leonard Brackett, it goes to show that they really hope Mendes' opinion was valid. How can they totally disregard Jurasowic's opinion? Then the PM sits there and lies to the public and say that he is the only one that saw Jurasowic's opinion. The AG never received it. When did Johnny Briceño became a lawyer to be able to interpret legal opinions by himself? Besides his AG, he has Francis as lawyer, Dolores as lawyer, Henry Charles as lawyer, Kareem as lawyer, Chebat as lawyer, and the unelected Chris Coy and Eamon Courtney as lawyers in his cabinet. How come Anthony Marler, who is not an attorney, was the only person to reject Mendes' opinion? I wish that should sink into the minds of the Belizean people. It's a lot of words, it's a long statement, but I wish at least a part of it would residue in the minds of our Belizean people. We have one of our guests showing up. I think it's Ms. Sharon Pitts. Please allow me a couple of seconds to bring her up. Good evening, Sharon.
Sorry, I just get in now.
That's all right. We're just glad to have your presence. I was in the middle of making a presentation here, and I just stopped and asked permission to the public to let me distract from what I was doing to effectively try to bring you on onto the program. No? Thank you very much for showing up. Just try to continue so that I don't leave the public in limbo in terms of what I was saying.
Yes, sir.
So the question was asked, how come Mr. Anthony Marler seemed to have been one of the strongest opposition to this dastardly action that the PM was trying to pull off in his cabinet meeting, when he is not even a lawyer? And you have all those other guys that we listed there in his cabinet that are all lawyers. But of course, when he brought up and objected, they all probably, for whatever the reason, decided to, support him, right? Rather than the Prime Minister. And for that reason, the Prime Minister could not get enough people in cabinet, or at least the majority of the members of the cabinet, to go along with him. Because they are all lawyers and they all heard, saw, and right there were being embarrassed by a non-liar. Okay? But at least somebody who was displaying some level of fortitude and patriotism. Fortitude to know that he's going up against his own prime minister and all the rest of more senior people than himself, and lawyers at that. But the man was patriotic enough to see what the hell was about to happen and recognize that the Attorney General had already given legal advice in addition to what Mr. Josewicz and Mr. Mendes had given, for which she, the Attorney General, decided to leave the cabinet because she could not countenance such treachery. The lady preferred to walk away with her dignity minimally damaged, but at least trying to recover or try to keep whatever dignity and professionalism and ethics and morals at that she will be able to live with for the rest of her life. That's the difference between some politicians and others. I'll go on to read the last part of what I commented then after Mr. Robert Turton made his comments. I said, Mr. Robert Turton, Mr. Mahler and others didn't wish to associate with that treacherous agreement. Thank God, enough of them took compassion upon the country and realized the powers that they had in their hands to either put us over a barrel as they eventually decide to do afterwards. But at that point in time, at least, Mr. Mahler, the non-liar, carried the day on behalf of his country. And I would say, kudos after the fact. Thank you, Mr. Mahler, again, as I have said before. And now that I'm revisiting the topic, I just want to express my sense of gratitude to him for having the gall and the guts to stand in the breach and face the fire, whatever fire would have been coming in his direction. As a matter of fact, well, let me not get into that because I was going to get into something else that currently is happening with Mr. Mahler. And for all intents and purposes, those guys don't forget. I know that Mr. Mahler is having some difficulties that they are trying to bring to his plate, but it was partially as a result of this same issue. Those guys don't forget, especially when big money involved. I have one other little piece that I want to deal with before I get into the response. Mr. Wade, I'm sorry, sir, for taking up all the time, but if you allow me, I just have one more piece that I want to deal with here. Oh, okay, I have it upside down. Sorry. October 7th. Okay, so let me go to October 7th quickly, and then I'll deal with that. September, October 7th, September 7th. I'm close by. Just give me another couple of seconds, and I should be able to pull it up. October 7th, I got it. Okay. No, this one. Okay, so I got it. And I'm going to read this one. It's not too long, but it's very germane to the issue and very relevant. The following comments were made by Leonard Brackett as part of a Facebook post thread, and the leader of the opposition, Honorable Mr. Sharon Barrow, comments about Prime Minister John Briceño's shortcomings. I titled this one, Belize PM Briceño, how much more, sir? Double question mark and double exclamation mark. Belize PM Briceño, how much more, sir? I went on to say, this Honorable Prime Minister of Belize, Mr. John Briceño, has gone rogue. power drunk. He has been mismanaging Belize affairs for a long time with unchecked impunity and support from a super parliamentary majority, most of whom are being deceptively conned, shortchanged, more so than members of cabinet have been conned and shortchanged as well, as previously noted in the other articles that I just read, no? Which should enable him to provide good governance and without needing to try overthrowing the present system or current head of state or attempt to abolish or ultravirus or eviscerate the Belize constitution in unconstitutional ways, or which is why he initiated a constitution reform commission, now People's Constitution Commission, to do his dirty deeds, seditious works for him, so he can hide behind as a cover or a shield for his naked aggression against Belize's constitution and people, to facilitate his devious and nefarious and malignant cancerous undertakings against our patrimony and country of Belize. I went on in my final statement in this particular item to say, whilst, whilst recruiting Belizeans as sovereign citizens in his grand scheme, deceptive ploy to converting Belize into the Republic of Belize as an independent, defenseless pauper, a republic or a vassal state of Guatemala with autocratic, sorry, with, with autocratic dictatorship and ministerial fiat governance. And that is the end of that third presentation there. I'd just like to ask Mr. Wade, would you have a comment on any of those that I read just now?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, welcome Ms. Pitts, Ms. Sharon Pitts. Welcome her to the program. It's a pleasure to have her.
Thank you. Good night, gentlemen. Good night,
Yeah.
listeners and Belizeans at home and abroad.
Okay.
Thank you. I will comment a little on the political situation. It's my take. And I have commented on it several times, and I stand the same ground. To me that the political situation was a sweetheart deal. And it was originated by the UDP, right? And they seems that the ones, some of us might know the ones them that were involved in it, right? Some names were called, right? And to see the level of don't give a damn, to about how the Belizean people think. They just went ahead and they do whatever they do, however they feel like doing it. Like I say, it originated. We all know how it originated by the UDP. Mr. Briseño came and he made a show out of it. He tore it up in the house. Now, to me, that was just a show, right? And he was supposed to do better, bring something better. In fact, he brought something worse and slapped in the face of the Belizean people with all a line item of sweetheart deal and tax break. Worse than how the UDP had presented it, right? And they had a charade with that in the house and within them, right? And that's what they come up with, right? Shouldn't they came to the Belizean people? You know, they should have a mass undertaking like that, right? Which involve our reef, our sea lines, our natural resources, right? Should have come to the people, but no, they are the boss. You see, they have the super majority, and they end up with a sweetheart deal. Like the man Ashcroft said, it's a retirement fund for the boys, right? And he rightfully says, Leonard, the amount of lawsuit that's going to come back to haunt this country and to haunt the taxpayers. And not Briseño packet or the PUP packet or the UDP packet. No, taxpayers. So it's a shame to see how these guys operate, all in their interests, not in the interest of the Belizean people. And again, in my personal view, the players in this political scheme, Belizean, you'll be surprised to know who they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like the saying says, whatever you do in the dark
It will come out.
will come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like how he shoved it in the face about the Brad's deal, and he mentioned names who are behind it, right? So that's why he took it away. But he know better, know better. So we also, while I'm that, I would like to know who is behind this new Bolido scheme now. I would like to know. And the Belizean people would like to know. And like you says, I will fast track to the Senate inquiry where he went on to mumble, and nothing that comes out of that guy's mouth. I am not a fanatic of a UDP nor a PUP. I'm no fanatic of none of them. I call them for how I think and how I feel and how I see. Nothing that comes out of this prime minister's mouth, I believe, because he proves it to me every time. Keep lying and lying. But as to that Senate inquiry, he knows what he's saying. He knows that nothing is going to come out of it because who appoints them, right? And who is his lead senator? An unelected individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he knows what he's saying. Nothing is going to come out of it, and he sees it's a burden that's going to be to the taxpayer. That's what this man said, right? He knows what he's talking, right? So all I'll say with all what you said there, Leonard, I would like them to pass and fully enact UNCAC. And I pass it over to Miss Spitz. I'll pass it over to Miss Spitz, and that's what I have
Um,
to say on that. There,
Before
Chairman.
before we go to Ms. Spitz, I just want to acknowledge the presence of another one of our panelists, with Ms. Spitz. If you allow me the opportunity, please.
Mr.
Now we
Gregory.
have Mr. Gregory Morrison as
Yes,
one of
Thank you.
good
our
evening.
Welcome.
invited special guests for tonight, and we're glad to have you on, sir. And we were in the middle of
Yes.
discussing the Portugal issue. We were
Yes, I
discussing
was listening
quite a
as I
few
was
other items,
driving in.
Okay.
I yield to Miss Spitz.
We usually yield to the guest man.
No, but
I know
that is true. But that is true. But you know what? I put the guest on a hot seat too
Yeah,
I
quick.
want to
You know,
right?
and we have you. We have you. At least you have been hearing
Let's
most of what we were talking about. So that's why we're
let's
deferring
to
to
the
you.
chase, right?
yes.
We Belizeans have a way, no? And sometimes I just have to use anecdotes because, like, we have a way of we walk into things because The writing has been on the wall. The patterns are consistent. Things can happen. If then it happen by accident, they can happen better than if they plan it, right? And I'm saying generally there are a lot of things happening to our country. We see things as resources. We have one higher thing. We have heritage. We have, I love the word patrimony. We kind of deal with patrimony. These are things which you, not things, but intangibles and tangibles, heritage, intergenerational matters, and public trust. You know, some countries call themselves, like Bahamas, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So we have the Commons and the Commonwealth of Belize. Samuel Haynes never just me want to rhyme this heritage whole by saying, well, you know what, nature has blessed you with wealth untold. We have one thing where, and I like this word, I'm not even sure if I fully know what it means, but all I wish I try and embrace it. Let's talk about the imprimatur, something that is imprinted on your, that thing which is a tie that binds you, it defies one grammatical explanation, right? That thing will lead through your intuit, where you inherit from your ancestors, part and parcel. Not only people have rights, you know, countries have rights and citizens have rights to defend it. Why I say all of this, right? Belize is open for the slaughter, it seems, and we are at a point now where we have to be as heritage holders, and things that we will have to see, we have to see the forests and not just the trees, and these things which we are seeing, the different fireway. There were people that are saying, oh, so busy, we're so busy, the different fireway, the light, we are out there, try out them and dose them, and then the skull with burn with, while the other one there, someone be distraction too. But getting to projects and so on, right? I have a view that we have moved away from what would have been in the best interest of Belize, eco-cultural tourism, and we push one eco-tourism, which is a fallacy. Yeah, bringing some monies, but yeah, and it costs with some things. Then by way of that, the real estate development and so on. In short, all the commons are right of ways or public trust, the riverbank, the seashores and so on, right? The reef, the waters, the clean water, the clean air, the forests, right? We get back to extraction, and with due respect, Belize our people's paradise, now a pimper's paradise, right? So that we have this notion that people can invest. They know they bring sand to the beach. Why they not invest elsewhere? Because what we have here, we have the people, knowledge, quality, industry, good sense. Less is more. We could really hold on to this, and people could come and share and enjoy it and come with respect. But it must be that our people, right? And with policies of state and the mandatorate that no one dictatorate, right? And the protectorate have to say, we have to have one 2020 vision that these projects, right? I think in the US, when I used to look at when you had the National Environmental Protection Act or whatever, is that you had some, and I want to call out one, you had one big case, Disney and Martin or something like that. They have a more formal name. But when I used to have the like one threshold where if you have major or something and action, which something, and then if they are federal, then go keep kicking and so. So the environmental protection people and used to have to try to find a legal handle. But what you had was you had different action here, there, and everywhere. And then they were programmatic. So they had some far-reaching consequence, right? So what we they have now, we they have, well, we have Portico, we have Waterloo, we have this, that, Tara, we have a reef, where they have floating hotel, where they have over water bungalow. I they understand where all this is going, And everybody want to come in like this that the Wild West, to come conquer, and the people want to get displaced. This Belize city where our backway sea, where God give with this estuary. People want to get tax out of it, whether from the parking meter to the other thing. Then you see the flood the other day. Yes, you got climate change, but the climate has a way of renewing itself. Even COVID, you know, say if you're Ghana and Burgers Key, certain places and right in the city, you see more poops in the water, you see fishes, you see more alligator, so that what humans do have to align itself more. And I all for sustainable development, but I am for patrimony. And it can't be that the Belizeans they get left out. I think that my Pinlin said one time, we know be one nation of waiters and waitresses. The average Bahamian no have no problem to go abroad because they protect Cayman a year. I don't know if that's so. That then tell them people if any developer build one hotel or a beach house, pa on commons on right away on six. The British give us some good things, Costa Rica that must say 300 feet or 300 meters with a beachfront. Mexico, certain things. But the Caymanians or Caymanian people or whoever you call it were being encouraged and reminded them build pound of whatever. Open the gate and walk through. And if they living room, they pound of 60 foot right away. Open the door and walk through. If their bedroom, walk through. I have said at some quasi-environmental meetings here that we don't have a paradox or dilemma.
Sharon?
If somebody got a certain then hotel and then do certain things, and the hotel they say, oh, you depend on thing, where you have now that you have some private thing. I see one there that is so-called private development on private land, but you won't have to join one club figure. Some of them got dog. Remember slavery days when the dog they said,
Sharon?
they cut off right away. And you find that this, to my mind, is a crisis of existence that our people are experiencing, being displaced, country being taken away, and the big picture we know they see. We they see it, and the small
we have that
picture.
incident in Monkey River, Sharon. We have that incident in Monkey River, what you just mentioned.
Just a minute. I just wanted to give Mr. Morrison one chance enough to weigh in with us before the topic got changed again. Mr. Morrison, I know you came in on the end part of 3 different readings that I did consecutively, and I don't know if you want to make a comment on any of those 3. Of course, I don't know how much of it you had heard, but at least I would like to have some input or some contribution of your thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to echo
even if it's something different, even if it's something different.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Ms. Spitz was saying. And what happens also in these development in many countries is that when a company comes in to make a development and it's impacting so much of the society, they are required to put a certain amount of funds into a public trust that could be used for public use, such as building a school, such as building a library, and those type of things. And we don't see anything like that happening in any of the programs that are being proposed. And I wonder about that, because so much is going to be taken away from the public good in putting these projects in. I know they talk about employment and such, but that's not all that's lost, or gained. There's much in terms of environmental impact that's going to be lost. There's much in terms of usability for the people that and having the experience they would normally have in the open space that is lost. And so there needs to be some way that there's a trust set up from these companies, and that they also have to put money aside to deal with any environmental impact any of their projects might cause. So so that if something happens, they don't just walk away and said, "Oh, too bad." So I'm very concerned about a lot of how our government looks at these things, and it seems that it's just like you said, Mr. Brackett, a pension fund for the boys, and very little for the people of Belize is being considered.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morrison, for that wonderful contribution, sir. Would you like to touch on any of the other points, then, or before we go to Mr. Wade?
No, go ahead. I go ahead on the others.
Okay, Mr. Wade, right back to you again, sir, if you don't mind.
Well, like I was saying, on this first comments here from you there, Leonard. I have concluded that these guys, they're gonna get what they want, and at the end of the day, and all I would like to conclude on that is that I would like for this government and this prime minister to give today, before he leave or continue office, whichever one comes, or whatever happens, not too long from now, that the same effort and the same sweetheart deals he did with Portugal, I would like for him to make an announcement to the poor Belizeans that who cannot pay back taxes and who owe taxes to the government. Write it off, right? And ease the burden from the poor and less fortunate Belizean. The same effort you gave to Portugal, I'm begging you, sir, please give that, because I know of many poor Belizean who are in back taxes. And not very much, not in the millions like what you gave to Portugal, right? A few $100s, a couple of $100s, but they just cannot pay. Have a heart, man. That's what I would like to end that Portugal in definite agreement with.
Thank you very much for that comment again, Mr. Wade, for your contribution. As regards to the Portugal issue, I don't know how come our Prime Minister could see the need for tax collections. Of course, I know how, because the IMF is down his throat when he wants to go to the IMF for money, or when he needs extra money for the teachers and salary, or anybody else increase in salary, or if he give any additional money to the CEOs, or for example, the other day when he try pull that fast on Palm about that $600. The man said, I know the teachers the impression, or the unions the impression.
Yeah.
But he never said nothing about we. He never said, well, are we pressure? He said who never pressure, but he never said who pressure. No, I'm just kidding. I'm being facetious. But
well,
dealing with a bunch of jackals,
Could I just add something?
Go ahead.
Because what Mr. Wade was saying, that probably it is cast already and there's no way of changing things. I do believe that advocacy, I do believe that people getting up and making their voices heard and visiting the office and marching and doing those things does change policies. So I am all for letting the voices of the people take action in the streets if necessary, if that be the final resort to get them to act. I do believe that could make the difference in whatever policy government advance, that people effort will make those changes.
That's the way it's supposed to be in a democracy, sir. And thank you very much for the contribution. I'd like to pass over back to Sharon, if you don't mind. Ms. Fitz.
Well, it sounds to me like in the Caribbean, and I rebuke and refute this. They have one notion that Belizeans, or what do they say?
With docile.
Word, but Belizeans are one set of people who are very unassuming. And somebody said Belizeans go horizontal, then get vertical. Me no know they take off. But the name the Harrier, I think they deserve stuff.
That's why I bring it. That's why I bring it. I believe to defend me with.
Then they name it after British Honduras people.
Yeah.
Then design it after British Honduras people. But I just wanted to touch on something, right? And we have to give a lot of food for thought because Mr. Morrison mentioned things like trust fund and scholarship and so on. And I think these are buzzwords that sometimes unwittingly are saying things. And I'm not saying we must not always be saying them, but you notice normally they will and come again. Oh, we they do this when they bring in casino, whichever government. I don't know who mean now government put up with this opposition at the time. But all monies will go to scholarships and sports and certain things, right? But the social ills and the cost and so on, you know,
Mhm.
and then somehow the money no, you know, see it, right? The thing is that we have things like when you look at the commons, you have your and certain things which are patrimony and heritage and part of the Belizean dignity and things that Belize as a country, we have moved from some things which were owned by the people and run by the government or managed by the government and various authorities. Then there was a translation to privatization, right?
Yes.
And so what we got from it looked like the colonialization to corporate colonialization, which is vulgar,
That's it.
rank, and
That's it right there.
what's the
What's
The
up?
thing is that when you look like from grace to grass
Oh
and
no.
No, remember, yeah,
congregation of
Sharon,
hard
Sharon,
continue to catch
Sharon,
up
Sharon,
people.
Sharon, just a minute. Remember the Prime Minister may get in trouble with the Speaker of the House with her from grace to grass or whatever? I apologize. I didn't mean it. Remember that
We
scenario?
continue to go from grace to grass to further alliteration of ours in this country. Whether the issue of the same thing, rake and scrape of the public patrimony. Quickly,
Right
where I
on
want
that, Miss
to
Pitts.
you
Right
have
on that.
a seaport, airport, landport, entreports, shipping areas, and so on. These things are not to be farmed or privatized under private companies where you can say who, what, when, where. They're not only open-ended revenue earners.
Yes.
Then a national security and
Very much.
international security interests. And then a part of the dignity of Belize as a country. And we people could run that with civil servants could run that. We gone to what they call it private one day. CEOs in a public service because it was that you take the example and role of the private sector and business managers can execute. The public, we call it the permanent secretaries were there because you had a, we call that thing,
Expertise.
the long-term memory, the institutional memory, the passing on and that thing where there was something about those men, some of them are political lackeys too. But you know what? You still had more of a meritocracy.
Yes.
Maybe under the British, we had one enemy we could have a point to, you know. But we never change it there to get recolonialized by then junk robot way in a corporate thing out there. Have I put it politely? Because you know what, I don't know bad body agent, but believe
Right.
anecdote
Right on the money, Miss Pitts.
right with
Real.
when Prophet costs you and not use bad word are the worst thing, you know.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spitz, for your contribution.
We can
I just want to go back for a
we
minute.
can be, you
Just
know, we can
Sharon?
reason, we can have rationale, but we have to, Mr. Morrison, there's a thing called righteous indignation and ability to voice for our people out there who literally, it seems to me,
Yes.
it look like the people in the way and this country look like it'll get packaged out and it's ripe for the taking, if you want to say in a politically correct way.
It
But
is.
every time these projects and things come along, the people get the shaft. The people
And that's,
only
I
brought
think in Belize
along.
they call it the bukut, no?
Get
Oh,
the
that
book, the book, yeah.
isn't that in polite
Book to
word?
get bigger and bigger.
But you know what? I beg pardon, because you put down a good thing. And bokot you could make wine and tonic and you could strengthen your blood. But this thing where then they do, I know how where bokot, I think I know what bokot mean, right? In the worst kind of way, right?
Hear you.
Can somebody else speak with reason and
Yeah.
temperance? What I
Sharon, we just
take a
wanted to, we just wanted us to go to a different point right now. We only have another 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes in the show now, so we want to skip to another point, if you don't mind. Uh,
break?
so we could, okay. Um, I just wanted to get this thing here quickly for a second. Mr. Morrison, would you care to add a small commentary there, sir? Just about a minute or so. Look, I'll just
Yeah.
find this thing.
Well, one of the things I heard you talk about was some of the concerns the Prime Minister had said in the House earlier, or trying to unravel the deal that he was in, and I do believe that his party jumped on him in it, and he keeps blaming now the opposition, when for me it is squarely in the hand of the government to deal with, to address.
Mhm.
And instead of disqualifying it, they came back and tried to push it through again. And so that was egregious. And I hope that, and they still seem to keep it, still seem to be alive. And as I was saying, there's nothing wrong looking at investment and looking at issues, but then, as Ms. Pitts was saying, we have to look at the consequences of these investment in how it affects our country. We do have the opportunity to do a better type of tourism than cruise boat tourism. And I'm not against development or anything like that, but if we could base our tourist infrastructure on more on environmental, on that type of on that type of ecotourism type of strategy, it is much better lasting. It will preserve the infrastructure of our country. It will greater distribution of whatever resources is coming to the country. And so for me, those are the kind of ideas I think they should be pushing, along with other type of industrial development, to broaden the thing, so that, as was mentioned, we're not just all standing there with a tray to serve someone a drink and such.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want
Well
to
said
read,
there.
a part of the Constitution of Belize, uh, Part 2, Section 15, Subsection 1 says, no person shall be denied the opportunity to gain his living by work which he freely chooses or accepts, whether by pursuing a profession or occupation or by engaging in a trade or business or otherwise. Sometime in the coming week, we will go back to deal with the issues that relates to the unexplained wealth rule
Yeah.
and the
The bill, right?
unconstitutionality. Yes, the bill, and the unconstitutionality of it, because the House empowered itself and gave additional powers as well to the FIU with additional languages or language, I should say, that allows them to violate the constitutional rights. And the fact that they did that meant that they were acting as scofflaws, because the highest law of the land is the Constitution, and it says they should not indulge in that type of behavior.
One of the
So,
problem I always worry about and always consider is, to me, the or attorney general should be a person that's protecting the Constitution at all costs.
mhm.
He should, even though he's there as appointed by the government, he should be such a person that is capable of understanding, even when his government comes to him with some type of law that is unconstitutional,
That's
and
the way it's
advise
supposed to
against.
be.
And we don't see that. I've never seen it in action in Belize where such happens, and that's troubling. And we need to sort of build up so that we could get a attorney general that will represent the people of Belize and the Constitution of Belize, and then also whatever is left, the interest of his party.
Well said.
It appears that because they're appointed by these individuals, they're beholden to these individuals first and foremost, and not to their title and the powers that is vested in them, and for the purpose for which that power is vested in them.
Well, I can give an example
Go right
when
ahead,
it
man.
has to do with a certain government proposing extension of detention of people beyond the 48 hours. The then Prime Minister said at his press conference, that he knew or was cognizant. Don't remember his exact way of putting it, but right to the point, that the Attorney General did not agree with him. And I am proud of that Attorney General whom I carry in my heart.
Yeah.
You could get as
Wait,
to who. Maybe he favor me or I favor him.
Mr. Wade, you have a small comment on that point, on
Well,
that topic, please?
I'll pass to Mr. Merson. Let him,
Okay, Mr. Merson, please.
uh,
You have
has
something else to
limited
add?
time, so I give him my time.
Okay. What was the point that you wanted me to address?
Uh, we were talking about the conduct of the attorney generals,
Oh,
them, and how they behave as if they are
yes.
hired guns for a particular
Yeah.
prime minister.
Yes.
Or
Okay.
they act like if they are the private lawyers of the prime minister rather than the
Exactly.
lawyers of the
And,
country.
You know,
and go ahead.
I laugh
sorry.
on that. Go ahead, Mr. Merson. I give
Oh,
him my time.
no, I said, and that is troubling. That is troubling in a democracy, because we want the attorney general to be the voice of the
Independent.
people. We want the attorney general to be the statue of our constitution. And when we see them just, I can't think of a polite word, but when we see them not acting in that, sometimes they may not be learned and knowledgeable of what their true responsibility to the country is. And so somehow they need to get up to speed. If you're going to appoint someone to be attorney general,
Mr.
they
Merson,
need to totally
Merson?
understand what the
I
responsibility
hope
of.
you don't lose your thought, the trend of thought, but I just want when you brought up a point just now, I just felt a little tickled and wanted to say something about it. No, the truth of the matter is not because these guys, attorney generals, don't know. They're appointed because they know. Most of them, if you look at their CV, they
Oh.
come highly qualified.
Oh no, yeah.
But the problem is they're too beholden to the interests and the mindset of the people that appoints them.
Yeah.
And they don't want to fall afoul of these individuals. So they are prepared to not do their job because they understand their assignments.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we need to have, like you said, a structure that finds them more accountable. And I'm thinking, and I think we have said this in many times, that to me, if you make a smaller cabinet, if you make a cabinet of professionals rather than a cabinet of political ministers, we would probably have a little better governance in some of these areas, and we'll have professionals doing the jobs for the people, and the politicians could play their role as they choose.
The
True
problem
enough.
is that these people want power and ultimate power and lack of accountability to go along with it. Sharon, would you care to elaborate
I
any
would
more on
say
that
that
development?
what you have mentioned collectively is not to be understated. The Constitution is the supreme law, and when it's under siege, it ought to be protected. But it's a living, ongoing instrument in the sense of I don't even hear one of those on the constitutional, whatever jigsaw, merry-go-round, saying that go into the history of this and presenting to the people that this came out of 1,000 years. This is why I have certain freedoms, parliamentary democracy, the Westminster model, and saying that the Constitution, in my view, Constitution only as strong as the people who protect it, you know.
Of course.
And
Mhm.
you can
Yes.
have learned people, right? And we would say that with respect to the Constitution, you're students of the law, but you're always a student of the law and the Constitution, ongoing. But what we have right now, in my view, is it is being pushed as though, you know what, you need to fix it because something wrong with it, that the politicians, they need fixing. And I always say, I'd take one Taylor, I'd take Mr. Gia Battle Race 22 picking the fix shoes for Albert Street. And I'd, you know, he had his son Neil used to pass for set everybody at SJC, go there, sew the shoes in, rub the bottom and go deliver and still do the work. But why I say that, right? Is that then I like some idle picnic. Then what people might say, oh no, dratted eagle. You know, when they pull one thread and they go unravel, when you they pull one part of the constitution, something else affected. Belizeans were in for a rude awakening. This experiment, where they happen, there was siege of the constitution, right? And
Yes.
you have people who want to be speaky spokey. They want to be within the whatever and within the tour, and they put themselves on certain organizations and so on, but they have not, to my mind, understood the government. And we have said, I think here, that they have to understand. My thing is that we have an ICJ crisis existential threat.
Mhm.
Why this now? There should
Yes.
be a moratorium. Mr. Greg Brackett said when they talk about other country, put it off for 10 years, right?
Mhm.
Because this thing post right, post right, post right.
Yes.
And it seems that it's geared to a certain timetable, and that one who your egg and it will be rammed down the throats of Belizean. Later on, Belizeans will say, but
Well, how
you
this
know
happen?
the
Before this term,
revolution in
before
front of your eye,
the
but
schedule is
you
before this term is
participated.
up. It's before this term is up. It's the schedule that they want to make sure that everything is in place. It's quite likely that we may not even end up with another election. Uh, 25, because that's the agenda that these fools are pushing for.
Yeah.
If they can get this
I,
country
I
into
mean,
an go
this
ahead, go ahead.
constitutional, to me, this constitutional reform came out of nowhere. I
It's
didn't
part of
hear
an agenda. It's
anyone
part of a
asking
bigger
for
picture.
it. So it was just something that somebody have some, like you said, an
It's
agenda
part
to
of a
do
bigger picture.
something. And when that comes, it's usually not in the interest of the nation. Otherwise, we'd have known about this a long time ago.
And like Sharon
I'll
said, it's
take
going to be too late by the time people realize
this,
Yes.
Mr.
what is
Chairman.
really at stake.
I'll take
And
my
they
two
will
minutes.
come
And,
like
and,
Uh,
and
bearing gifts, like, oh, you not have that right there.
Let
You
me
need
start
this
with.
to have the right. Oh, you're not this. We they give you this. Then people actually will be clapping and
yes,
cheering and
yes.
and
uh, Mr. Wade, you want to
Thank
have
you.
a contribution
Thank you. I'll
to
tally minute.
contributing to the demise of our constitution as we know it.
Yeah.
uh,
Like you,
very
like you
important point?
rightfully says, I'm Sharon, and we had stressed it on several occasions. Belizeans are in for a rude awakening, and not too long from now. Not too
Mhm.
long, right? And as far as what we've been seeing, the repetitious cycle, every time a government sits, brings in his own attorney general, his own, their own, workers to do their work, right? And I would like to say this in terms of the constitution reform. I would like to add in that we have elected uh, um, um,
Senators.
senators,
Mhm.
right? And elected attorney general, elected. That's what I would like to
Uh,
see, right?
But
Mr.
then
Weird,
again,
Mr. Weird, I'll go you one further. I'll go
wait,
you one
because
further.
we
The
we
whole
had
point
this
of
thing
this,
where people talk about more senators, elect the Senate, and so on. The different mechanism for get there, right? And you might have some people who can contribute who are not going through that, just that the power would reside in the people. But to put them there, no, and maybe the recall and so on. But
Exactly.
the problem is we keep trying to fix things a certain way. Oh, if you're elect, if you had 113 if you're this, that, and that. I used to have brief conversation with Mr. Henry Gardner, and it taking long years to come to me one day and say, I see what you say. I kept telling him, I said the constitution is something, I don't know, you have some people who become overnight, and I'm not saying him,
I would like
constitutional scholars, right?
I would like to read
And we talk about section
one of our
in
viewers at
2 hours, and the
sent
presentations are 30 minutes long. And
right now,
he
Mr.
will
Sharon.
Weird,
delve into sometimes
Weird,
one word in the
Right.
constitution. You could have there forever. But I'm saying let it go, no man, not
Yeah.
touch the constitution.
Yeah.
thank you very much, Sharon. That's a great contribution. Mr.
I
Weird,
was going to
back
say,
to Mr. Weird. Um, sir?
Yes, so like I said, that's what I would like to see happen in this country. And like I say, we have seen how they play around with judges and the judiciary. Each government come, they play around with it, fiddle with it to suit their agenda, right? These things need to stop, man. It's getting played out, and at the end of the day, who gets hurt? The little man. The little man always get the shaft or get the bukut. But I would like to read something from our um, sent us um, text here. It says, "Good night to all of you sitting on the wonderful panel. My question to you is: shouldn't foreign investors fall under open tenure, especially in tourism? And should it be the Minister of Tourism and not the Prime Minister dealing with it? And can the government of Belize put a cap on tourism investors?"
Can
That's a
I can I
question.
can I give some quick points on that particular? Um, no one minister should be allowed to be the final say or only say as regards to these matters, because
yeah,
that is what got us to where we are today.
should be a cabinet decision.
Right. And whoever signs on those documents, whether it be one or two or more persons, have to have the authority of cabinet to be able to do so legally, not just do so like we have the experience of the last Mr. Contreras under the UDP, trying to use his position to power play the situation and then end up with a crisis that we're now still dealing with. The problem is that Mr. Contreras cannot give any powers or authority or bring about any authority in law to subordinate the authority that is vested in the Ministry of Finance in terms of any kind of tax breaks. It has to come from the Ministry of Finance, authorize it, because that's where the authority for that matter lies constitutionally. All the portfolios have within themselves certain leeways and certain authority that is vested in them specifically. So, in order to deal with these mega projects, the responsible and concerned ministries must play an essential part in signing off on whether or not certain things go forward. We need to have those rules implemented in our system, because that's why you have people that these power players could go to and suborn them and try to get them to tell the government that you have to create a law now later on that allows these people to use that law against your country. What kind of craziness is that? The first protocol agreement was saying that the minister who was signing there, which made it illegal, by the way, was signing on behalf of the government, and it's mandating that whoever the next government becomes will have to write laws to facilitate bringing into existence a bunch of craziness that the Constitution now allow for, and that minister had no power to force the other ministers or the next future government to honor.
Well,
You
even
hear
this
what he
government
says?
is
The
trying to
government
do
has
that
no,
now
is not
with the
answerable.
agreement with
It's
the
un-
agreement for
Doing
Portugal.
government no
it's
answer to that.
unconstitutional, Mr. Morrison.
No, I'm saying
There, yes,
even
and I heard you, but
yeah,
it's unconstitutional, and they know it.
it would be unconstitutional, I would believe, because
But they're
each
still
government should have the ability to examine and to act in its own prudence on issues of national
within the
security.
Constitution. Once they act outside of the Constitution, they should be liable personally. Not the government should be sued by any other company or whatever when they don't write it in a law so that the cabinet has agreed to this and the House have passed this into law, and therefore it is the government that is over the barrel, like they are trying to do with us currently. Mr. Contreras should be liable for his subordination personally. Whatever resource he has or whatever means that can be brought to bear on him for whatever he did should go to the courts and should be locked up and dispossessed of whatever wealth he has in order to pay for whatever damage
Along with
he
the
created.
PUP. Along with
And
the PUP,
which is
With
what I was
Prime
about
Minister
to
whoever
say,
did
and
it,
and that
with
goes
whoever
for
did it.
him and anybody else.
Yeah,
That's the
but
law.
I do believe there was a lawsuit against him personally. I don't know how that's proceeding or if it's making any advancement or
It's just a sham.
yeah. I thought it probably was,
The
but
lawsuit should have been against the government. Okay, and Mr. Ashcroft now try to fight with the government right now because he hope that when Mr. Besenjo don't give Portico whatever he give Portico, he will be entitled to the same or what Mr. Besenjo give Portico. So they try getting no confrontation with them, and then she'll be getting into a confrontation with him to make sure that he don't invest no more money in a report and pay him off where expect me one and take back report because as Sharon said earlier, those are our patrimony and they're money making
he
ventures.
got 76 million not too long ago from the people's purse. 76
Yeah,
million
but
from
that was based on another court ruling for
yes,
another
yes.
issue that we
So
had with him, no?
who knows, who knows what's following, right? And this government will be gladly free-handed pay him off.
We are 2.5 minutes beyond the time limit, and I wasn't paying attention, and the discussion is nice and lively, and so I just want to say thanks to Mr. Merson for gracing us with his presence tonight and
Thank
the
you.
contributions he had brought to the table to benefit our country and people. Thanks also to Ms. Sharon Pitts for her steadfast input and guidance and support, and she's
I
a
did want
tested warrior, in terms of looking after the patrimony of our country, and therefore I just want
I
to
came in late, but I did wanted to touch a little bit on the communal land rights claim and
we have that set for Monday. We have it set for
okay.
Monday.
Okay.
Tonight was just about but on Monday we can take it
Oh, yes.
also
Well, that
constitutionally,
definitely have
That's a very hot
implications for
topic.
the Constitution
That's a very
as
hot
we
and
move
pressing
forward
issue
with
right
it.
now.
there's a part that's going on out there in terms of people talking about the communal rights case.
Yeah.
But nobody is looking at it constitutionally.
That was my point.
And
That
that's
was my
what I
point.
want to tackle with when we come back Monday.
Yeah.
I
Deal with it
can
from a
tell you
constitutional
that
perspective.
was something from
Can we talk
abroad
about that?
that
Can we
was
close the show right now?
exported to Belize, and
Sharon,
they're trying to balkanize Belizeans.
Yes.
Sharon, can I go ahead and close off the show, and then we could stay
Yeah,
in the
and then we
background and
could,
continue our discussion at least for another couple of minutes, if you don't mind, because we are beyond our time right now. I just want to thank you, Belizeans at home and abroad, for tuning in tonight or whenever you get an opportunity to hear our program. We're glad for this privilege to have been here tonight, and I'm thankful to Mr. Wade as well for his participation in tonight's program. Monday is supposed to be Gregory's turn. He's not in tonight, but hopefully Monday he will be with us and help us to present another good program. Let's go off the program right now, and we're going to end the program, and we're going to stay for a couple of minutes just to flesh out what we started talking